All right. There's a sikha from Rebbe on today's parsha. Although it touches the parsha just very briefly, it's not on the Rashi or anything like that, but it's based on the posuk Shoftim b'Shoftim titan lecha. The principle of Shoftim, of judges, and Shoftim are officers who see to it that the judgment of the judge is fulfilled. This is something which is actually true universally. In other words, in the world, in the non-Jewish world also, there is this principle. Not only there is this principle, but it is actually one of the 7 mitzvahs. One of the 7 mitzvahs is that it obligates all the nations in the world to have dinim, to describe certain principles upon which their society is built, is based, and that there should be also a system of judges and officers that safeguards these laws. Yet, the Medrash on this parsha, Shoftim b'Shoftim, says something totally out of imagination. It says that this Shoftim b'Shoftim can be understood with an analogy of a king who had many children. And of all the children, he loved the smallest one. And thus, he had an orchard, a pardes, an orchard. Orchard means a fruit garden that he loved. That was his beloved garden. So he said that this beloved garden I'm going to give to my beloved son. And thus the Medrash concludes that this is why Shoftim b'Shoftim titan lecha, that the principle of dinim Hashem gave to Yidden exclusively because this is the most beloved aspect by Hashem. So as we pointed out, this is odd because lahavdil by all the nations there is also this principle of dinim. Yidden are not unique in this. And then the Rebbe elaborates quite, extensively. Just want to briefly bring it down that the Torah has many things that it would appear to be more significant than just the dinim, the laws of behavior, the dinim of the civil laws and so forth. And what is the significance of saying that the Melech is giving this orchard, beloved orchard, to his youngest son, and thus Hashem is giving the dinim to the Yisrael, alluding to the fact that Yisrael are beloved by Hashem, not just for any other reason. There are many reasons why Yidden are beloved by Hashem. But there's one specific aspect. As it says, Nar Yisrael voya haveyu. Yisrael is a young child, and this is why I love him. In other words, there's something uniquely related between the fact that Yisrael have this quality of being Nar, a young child, and because of that Hashem has affection for them, and because of that, he gives them dinim. So the Rebbe said this is really counterintuitive, because dinim require great chachomim, great scholars, to adjudicate the dinim. How is that related to a nar, to a young child? And there are many other points that the Rebbe points out that clearly is telling us there's something below the surface over here. Something beneath the surface of very great significance, where this dinim, shoftim are singled out as something of great significance from all other mitzvahs in the Torah, from all other aspects in the Torah, and it clearly identifies the difference, the selection that Hashem selected Eden. And not only that, but selected Eden because of the fact that Na Yisrael lo Yahweh. So the Rebbe explains that in the principle of Shoftim and Shotrim, there are two distinct functions. One is simply to adjudicate. Anybody knows what adjudicate means? Yes? No?
No.
We have a rule over here that if we don't know, we scream. How come you're quiet?
You asked if anybody knows what it means.
Yeah, I asked.
An opening for you.
So nobody knew what it meant. So
I'm asking why you didn't scream before I asked.
I don't know. It's too quick.
Adjudicate means to judge, to paskin. No, adjudicate. To paskin. Everyone knows what paskin is?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
All right.
We do it all the time.
So the dinim of Shoftim b'Shoftim is not just to paskin dinim based on halachas that were already identified, and there has to be a scholar who can appropriately, correctly correlate. Correlate means connect the particular case to a halacha, because no case is exactly the way it is brought down in halacha. You have to find the aspect in every case what halachas are touched there. Just to give you an example, to have an idea. The Gemara says in the Rambam brings down that sometimes a person does one single act, and he is oived, he transgresses on 5 different lavin. That's one single act, and he is oived on 5 different lavin, sometimes even 6 lavin, and he gets balkis 6 times, and not simultaneously, consecutively. He finishes with one, he gets next. And all that has to be clearly identified. You know, what was he over in this nuance, this, anyway. So we understand that we need a scholar to be able to sort out the particular case and correlate it to a halach. So this is one aspect in Shoftim. However, the union of Shoftim that has been uniquely given to Eden and does not exist by other nations. This is what the Rambam says, that the Bezn HaGodel was the Bezn of 70 Chachamim, who sat in Beis HaMikdash, and they gave out all the heroes. Like in today's Parsha, there is that if there was a dispute in a certain bezin, they have to go all the way to Al-Hamokim Ashir B'Chashem. You have to go to Har HaBayis, and the bezin in Har HaBayis gives a psak din, and that is final. There is no, if one does not obey that psak, then he gets punished, severely punished. So the Rambam speaks about this Bezn HaGodel. And the way the Rambam describes the Bezn HaGodel is in terms that say that this Bezdin is not merely judging, correlating existing laws to a particular case. But this Bezdin, they are, as the Ram says, they are the basis of Torah Shebe'al Peh. They, on the basis of how they study, they learn Torah Shebiksav. On that basis, they produce halacha. They bring out the din, something that was not known, a total chidush it's called. They can interpret a pasuk in the Torah, and on the basis of that interpretation, there is a whole halacha. You learn Gemara, so you see what the interpretations could be, how subtle and how minute these interpretations can be, and that minute interpretation, a whole mountain is built. This actually means that the Torah is Hashem's Torah, and Hashem had given to a Yidden to fully define what is Hashem's Torah, which is essentially how it works out. Because Hashem only gave Torah Shebiksav and certain klolim, rules, like we say every day, 13 rules of how you interpret the Torah. And on that basis, the whole Torah Shebe'al Peh was developed. And this is Torah Shebe'al Peh, Hashem's Torah, which is a phenomenal thing. These are human beings who are using their own seichel. How can you say this is Hashem's Torah? And the answer to that is that Yisrael have this quality, Nar Yisrael, that he is like a small child. No matter how great a scholar he is like a small child. What is the significance of a small child? A small child has a particular connection to his parents. He is, whatever he does is all in view of how his parents would react to this. He's very deeply connected to his parents. There's an interesting inyan which I mentioned here, probably more than once, where the Alter Rebbe says in the Tanya, in the Hagdoma, in what's called Chinuch Cotton. Anybody knows what I'm referring to? Chinuch Cotton. This is in the Tanya. There's after the first section, there is a couple of pages printed in smaller type. This is Chanoch Hanarab. It's called Chinuch Cotton. This is like the Hagdoma to the next section of Shara Yichud V'Emunah, introduction. So in that little section, the Alter Rebbe says a very interesting thing, and he says, "Sheva Yipil Tzaddik will come, that a tzaddik will fall 7 times, and each time he will arise again." So Sheva Yipil Tzaddik will come. So the Alter Rebbe explains, what is this inyan that a tzaddik will fall and arise again? Why will he fall? The answer is because a person must be a mahalech. By nature, he's a mahalech. A mahalech means that he's constantly changing positions. He's walking from one place to another place. He's moving on. In moving, there is always that moment when one is not solidly in any place. I once explained in detail how do we walk. Like, let's say you have 2 feet You have 2 feet. And then you pick up 1 foot and you put it over here. The other foot remains in the place where you started from. So this movement ahead into a new place, this is like feeling the waters, Is it solid over there? Can I go there? You're trying out. You're feeling your way. And before you make the full move, the full commitment, you have to get a feel for this new place. In the meantime, during this state of indecision, you don't have a clear view as to where are you, here or here. Until you feel solid that you want to move here, then you pick up the other foot and move it and bring in the par. Throughout this whole process, okay, so this is a physical illustration. The Ruchnius, this is extremely significant. Because a person must be a Mahalach. And the only way to be a Mahalach, the only way to move the Ruchnius, is to break away from the parameters that you're in, and you have to seek and try to understand something distant, something which is beyond you, and you get involved into that, but you do not have a clear understanding of that new level. So in the meantime, you are in limbo. You're not solid where you were, and you haven't reached the next level. If I were to tell you that positively each one of you experienced this more than one time, how often did you think, oh, I wish I felt the way I felt a week ago? How come I'm feeling that warmth and that satisfaction, that solidity I felt a month ago? I was much happier. What happened to me? Now I'm kind of at a loss. Right? How did I guess? This is called movement. Guaranteed, if you were sleeping during this month, that wouldn't have happened. It happened only because you continue to learn and get a deeper understanding what you're learning a little bit more deeply, and becoming more interested in that depth. All of a sudden, you lost footing. Do I understand this? I don't. No, I don't understand. Well, I do understand. What's going on? So this insecurity, this state, is called an nephila. It's called a falling off. Any time that a person is not sure of himself, any time that a person doubts himself and is not feeling his fullest enthusiasm, his fullest strength, he's in a state of falling. So this fall is a fall, on the one hand. On the other hand, it is actually a fall that its cause is a positive cause. And without that fall, you couldn't reach to the next level. Just like in this case of walking or climbing steps. You put your foot up, you're standing solid, and then you put your foot up to the next step, and now you have to pull your whole self up on one foot. It's a completely different challenge. So this is called a fall. So the Alter Rebbe points out a rhetorical question. What happens during this fall? What maintains the person? What holds him up? What sustains his spiritual state during this fall? Now let us understand, we're talking about a tzaddik. A tzaddik means someone who had learned a lot of Torah. And not only learned a lot of Torah, but he taught himself a lot of Torah. In other words, he actually absorbed. And he worked on himself, and a tzaddik is, you know what a tzaddik is, according to the Tanya, it's an unreachable level altogether. In any case, we're talking about somebody who is it makes no difference. He can be the greatest of scholars and the greatest of oivdim, and a tzaddik in the real sense, and he will also have nefila and kima. He will also fall and go up. So the Alter Rebbe asks this rhetorical question: what happens during this fall? What sustains him? He's not standing on solid ground because he had lost his solid perspective intellectually. So what's holding him up? And what did the Alter Rebbe's answer? It's a phenomenal thing. The answer is that what's holding him up is the chinuch that he got when he was a child. So if one asks a question, you're talking about a tzaddik, talking about a great scholar, who is advanced in age, who knows the whole Torah. And what holds him up? That which his mommy told him when he was in the cradle. That which he learned, all the Torah that he learned and understood, is not going to hold him up. But that which he learned when he was a baby, this is going to hold him up. What's the explanation? As a child, there's a big difference. When a person learns as an adult, no matter how profoundly he learns it, no matter how clearly he learns it, there is the element of not knowing and knowing. In other words, there's always the element of are you sure? There's always the possibility of asking questions. That which he learns as a child, there's no question, no possibility of question. My mommy said, this is the end of the world. This is the reality itself.
It's like breaking overs. And it also says,
What?
It says a person's like a tree, a person's like a sponge, a person's like a funnel.
Yeah, well, that's different. You're talking about a scholar. But you're talking about a completely different principle. The chinuch that a one gets as a child is something which absorbs in his very essence. This will remain with him for life.
Give some example.
That wouldn't be like a sponge
No, that's something that's still absorbing. Give an example. Вы разговариваете по-русски? Huh? Can you imagine that you forgot Russian?
No.
It's an example.
Yeah, listen, but I know friends who forgot, who knew language, but he was a smile guy, a smile Joe, very, very young, and then he forgot, he became old. He was used to speak fluently English, any language, he forgot.
1 second. I'm asking whether you forgot the mother tongue.
I told you, this is, I told my wife, she was born in Srednja Azia, Uzbekistan,
Yeah.
She spoke fluently Uzbekistani, whatever, as a perfect Muslim girl.
Right. Right.
And she came to Odessa and everything disappeared.
Really? It didn't disappear. 100%. It didn't disappear. You should throw her back in there and she'll pick it up in no time. You can't forget the mother tongue. It's in you. I know for myself. You know the difference between the mother tongue and the language that you learn? Even if you become very fluent. When you say table in English, a language that you learned, you say like this: there's a table, and the reference to the table is the word table. It's not a table is a table. A table is a certain form, a certain frame. And how do you refer to it? By the word table. In the mother tongue, a table is a table. It's one and the same thing. It's impossible to separate it. It's a reality itself. Anyways, so this is the pshat. Now Yisrael have this quality as a small child, that they cleave to Hashem like a small child. Which means that they absorb from Hashem not as an adult who absorbs and he knows what he had learned. In other words, there are two separate things. There's me and my teacher, and I'm learning from my teacher. A child learns in a different way. By child, that which my teacher said, this is the reality. This is not me, and this is the reality. Yidden have this quality that they relate to Hashem as like a child. And thus, their connection to Hashem is what's called on an essential level, not on a scholastic level, an intellectual level, or even an emotional level. It's not even an emotional thing, it's an essence, it's the very reality itself. Because of this, Hashem entrusted to Eden that they should, so to speak, develop his Torah. The Chachomim of the Sanhedrin, they would, as Rambam said, they are the basis of Torah Sheb'al Peh, and then the various best Botei Dinim throughout the ages, everything that the Chachamim that have established, this is part of Torah Sheb'al Peh. Because of this very special connection, union between the Yid and the Meibesh. So that when a Yid learns Torah, even though he's learning Torah with his seichel, trying to understand the Torah, but he understands the Torah with his seichel, but on what basis? From whose perspective, from whose viewpoint? What gives the Torah reality to a Yid? Not the fact that he understands it, not the fact that it makes sense. What gives the Torah reality by Yid is that this is Hashem's Torah. And that remains no matter how great a scholar he becomes. So that when he tries to find a halacha, even though he's using his own seichel, but the basis and the background for this seichel is what would be Hashem's view of this shaila, of this question. Not what is my view. How does he know what would be Hashem's view? It is because that he is so intrinsically, so fundamentally and totally connected to Hashem, like a child to whom his parents is the whole world, the whole reality. Hashem is the whole reality to a Yid. And this is why he was entrusted with the Meibash's Torah to develop the Torah Sheb'al Peh. And this is the pshat what the Medrash says, Shoftim b'Shoftim. Now this is something which Hashem gave to Yidden, because Yidden have this unique connection to Hashem, Nar Yisrael V'Yaveyu. And this is why they were entrusted with this being Shoftim. Shoftim means that they actually ask him, what is the Torah say? Not what does the halacha say about a particular case. For this you need scholars. Even judges can also do that, even non-Jewish judges. This is something which is unique. What is the Torah say? What is the Hashem say? This is a completely different thing. So, as always, this is the Rebbe's Sikha. There are other points in there, but I felt that this was a very unique, a very revealing principle. And as always, our point is not just to learn the Sikha, learn the Parsha, but to find ourselves in that which we learned. We, as whatever we are, small or big, we have these two principles, these two views, intellectual views. How do I see it, and what is the truth? What is the reality? In every situation, I want to give you an example, a halachic example. There's an interesting halacha in the Mishnah. I don't remember if I ever discussed it here, but it's very illustrative of this principle. Two neighbors, shchenim, have gardens, one next to the other. One garden is quite a bit above the other garden. Let's say it's 5 feet above. There's a 5 foot drop between one garden and the other. One owns the garden on top, one owns the garden on the bottom. Now, between these two gardens, there's 5 feet of land, of earth. What happens if some vegetation comes out in this 5 feet? Right over there in between the two gardens. Who owns it?
The one on one side.
Huh?
Lower part. The one on top side owns the upper part, no?
What lower part?
Yeah, the 2.5 feet
Yeah,
going
this
down.
goes on here and this goes, no?
Sounds good.
Down the middle. That's a guess.
That's a guess, right.
Top owner.
It's a tough question, right?
No, it's not top. It's top owner have to be owners.
Say again?
Top owner.
The top owner, why?
Why? It's my guess. I don't know.
Oh, it's your guess.
We get airspace rights.
Huh?
We get airspace rights.
It's an interesting thing. And the Mishnah actually discusses all the various possibilities. One Tana says it belongs to the top one. Why? Because if he so chose, he can take the whole earth away from there. There would be no vegetation. It's his earth. So it grew in his earth. Therefore it belongs to him. Another Tana says, yes, but if there was no space in which the vegetation should grow, then it would not grow. So the lower gardener, he has the option of filling in his land, and there'll be no space. Okay? So we are now at a standstill. Now with each one of them, if we were to adjudicate, paskin it, if we were to judge it from the perspective of what I own or what you own, they'll never come to a conclusion. Okay, so there are different. And then there is a third opinion. Third opinion is that when the top gardener stands on top of his land, all the vegetation that he can reach down and pick up in his hand normally belongs to him, and the rest that he cannot reach down belongs to the one on the lower level. That's his opinion. Okay, so these are. I want to explain what's behind all of these opinions. The question over here is, to whom did Hashem give these vegetables? The vegetables grow on the land. But they don't belong to the land, they belong to the one that Hashem wanted these vegetables to have. So there are the simple two approaches is Hashem wanted that the vegetables should belong to the one who has the land, or Hashem wanted that the vegetables belong to the one who has the space. They both have something that tells them that this is meant for them. But then, if we realize that that cannot be, because one cannot have the vegetables without the other one's support, then we realize that in this case, listen carefully, in this case, Hashem is giving the vegetables not on the basis of land that you own or space that you own. This is a direct gift from Eibushan. Neither one of them has ownership of this vegetables. It's a direct gift from Eibushan. And therefore the Tana comes and says, okay, who is the Eibushan directly giving it to? So he says the one who was able to reach, that which he's able to reach, you could say that Hashem is given to him. That which he cannot reach, you can't say that Hashem gave it to him. And the bottom one can reach the other one. So it's a completely different perspective. In other words, this is not just a dispute, it's my land, it's my space. It's a question of who did Hashem give this to? This is a judgment not based on any worldly parameters. You understand? There is nothing here. There is not, from a worldly parameters, you can't adjudicate this. At best, you can come what's called a pshora. You make a compromise. So you tell them, why don't you compromise? 1 year you take it, 1 year you take it. Whatever a compromise. That's not a deen. A compromise is not a deen. But this is a deen. Only a Yid, in whose mind Hashem's, the existence of the world, Hashem's presence in the world is real and present. Not just in the past. So Hashem created the world and then He let me run the world, take care of it as I please. But Hashem continues to provide for the world, and everything that happens in the world, Hashem is providing it. only that type of attitude, that type of lifestyle can come up and understand a case which has no worldly parameters. There's no worldly basis to adjudicate this case, this dispute. So coming back to ourselves again, as we are learning Torah, we're learning Gemara, we're learning Shulchan Aruch, Mishnayos, Chassidus, there are two levels of learning. The first level of learning is that it should make sense to me. I know what it says. I can follow through. I can translate what I'm learning, and I can repeat what I've learned. If such and such happens, this is what you have to do. Then there is another aspect. The other aspect is that I sense, hey, this really is right. This really is true. Why is it true? Not because after this psak, these people are now going to stop fighting. It is true because this is the reality. This is the reality of Hashem's presence in the world. Shabbos. You're not allowed to do a malacha on Shabbos. What is the definition of a malacha?
Anything that was done to construct the
What is the definition of malacha? How does the science define work?
and toil.
Huh?
Something that's strenuous.
Exertion of energy.
Yeah.
39 malachas that were done to build a base of mikvah.
Science.
No, that's what they're talking. I'm saying the world. What is the world definition of work? Right? Mass times space times distance or something like that, right? In any case, a completely different thing of carrying a handkerchief in your pocket.
That's not work.
Is not work, and not having it is a nuisance. Completely different perception. How do we understand this? I mean, after all, we're learning it, and we're saying, okay, this is what the halacha says. But we have to be able to relate to this. Like you started saying. We have to be able to relate to this. Shabbos is a day not of rest, but not a rest by worldly definition. It's not a day to sit there and put your feet on the table and hallucinate. It's a day to rise above worldly parameters and recognize Hashem's presence in the world. That's what Shabbos is. Shabbos LaHashem. It's a holy day. And therefore, what is a malacha? Any malacha that by Hashem's definition is a malacha. To Hashem, nothing is difficult. To carry a ton of bricks is not difficult. So the definition of work is not how heavy it is and how difficult it is. What is the definition of work? What it accomplishes. Is there something novel? Does it create a new situation? That's what creation of the world is. It may be trivial in terms of labor, in terms of the toil, of the effort. But from a Rufnisiki perspective, this is work. What you actually, like you said, right? You take something out from the Shus HaYochid into Shus HaRabbi, you're literally changing its definition. Shus HaYochid, it has one identity, and Shus HaRabbi has a different identity.
What's the identity? What's the different identity?
What's a different identity? How is it different? In the Shus HaYochid, everything has a functional, like the cup standing here, has a functional presence. In the Shus HaRabbi, it has a potential presence. You understand what I'm saying? Take this table out in the street. Is it a table? Would you sit around it to learn?
No.
Right, you would. Even though it's the same table, you can sit as comfortably as it, but the whole, it doesn't fit in the whole environment. So the same thing in all the 39 malachas. The idea of a malacha is defined from Hashem's perspective. How do human beings relate to Hashem's perspective? We live in our own world. What's the answer? No, a Yid lives in Hashem's environment. On Shabbos particularly, that's where he lives, in Hashem's environment. And when he learns Torah, he is in Hashem's environment. He's trying to understand the Torah from within Hashem's environment, not from a worldly environment. Like I said before, it's not a question whose land it is, it's a question is to whom did Hashem give this? In general, what this is telling us, that while we have been learning Torah and been learning maybe seemingly simple things, ultimately, our neshama certainly sense it, but eventually even our seichel will sense it. There's something much more subtle, much more holy, much more profound here than just the dispute or just a particular situation. For example, you cannot mix wool and linen. You cannot mix meat and dairy. Right? In the world, it's the biggest thing, the biggest celebration they have. What do they call it? Cheese, right?
Cheeseburger?
We eat at Hashem's table. From Hashem's perspective, these are two different worlds and they must not mix. And this is how we live. And we can relate to it. That's the point. Not only we live it because that's what the Shulchan Aruch says, but this is the world that we relate to. How, why, and how do we do this? Because I'm a small child. And whatever my father says, that's the reality. And eventually, as I grow, I sense the reality, I understand this reality even better. but this is my reality. I could not contemplate any other. The Gemara says, if somebody eats something that's forbidden to be eaten, give you an example. They say halacha. If you're an employer of workers and you agreed, in part of the agreement, part of the contract is that you have to give them lunch. And unbeknownst to you, unintentionally, you gave them lunch, kilayim, forbidden food, kilayim, either kilayim or whatever it may be, forbidden food, or orla, something that's not allowed to be eaten. It's just as healthy, just as tasty or anything like that. And you find out about it. And they ate it. And they were satisfied. The lunch was good. You have to pay them the cost of lunch. Because there's no way that a person can so to speak, feel and tolerate and feel having accepted, having eaten, if he ate something that's forbidden. He ate it, but he mentally he didn't. Therefore, you order him a lunch. So it's coming down to the bottom line. We have to appreciate and understand when learning Torah. I'm sure you all recognize you learn Torah and it's very deep and it's as much as we understand it's only a drop in the bucket, but at the same time we have a sense whose Torah are we learning and what is the basis of this Torah. That way, when you learn Torah, besides the fact that your mind opens up and you begin to see a different world, but that way, the Torah that you learn truly becomes a spirit, becomes a spirit of your life, and gives you the fullest means by which to live your life in the world. It's not just something I learned, okay, put it away now, let's get down to the real things, the real world. The real world is the world that the Torah defines. So, we shall help that each one of you and each one of us should open up with our whole self to sense the truth of the Torah that we're learning and the godly presence in the Torah that we're learning. This is the essential union of Shoftim and Shoftim. Okay. Have a good evening. I understand that tomorrow you're taking a trip out or something like that. Hope you enjoy it.